Good morning, everybody. Friday, the weekend's coming up. Hope you're going to have a big one and have a bit of fun. Keep watching the tracker and everything. So, what's happening? It's all pretty stable right now, but certainly Penduic is still roaring away, and Explorer, they had a spinnaker wrap. Hopefully, they didn't damage the spinnaker. And there's some fun stuff going on, and some of the tactics of various boats are playing off together. I'm still trying to get together with Brian. I'm going to talk to Brian today and talk about a way forward. We spoke previously about doing a weekly sort of panel, just discuss what's happening. And to be quite honest, we've just been too busy to even think about that, but we'll have a look at that. And his daily updates are becoming daily epics, not quite novels, but daily epics. And we'll talk about that. Butch, you may remember, who's one of our commentators, he's sent me some amazing material, his thoughts on a few things, and I've been meaning to put them up. I haven't got them there because there's so much other material happening. So there'll be a few extras coming up, and I'll try and sort it this weekend to give you some more opinions on how the race is progressing and how it connects to the history of the race, the 50th anniversary, all those sorts of issues, and previous experience from some of the Whitbread vets, including Butch, way back then. So look forward to that. And I'll also maybe this weekend do a tutorial on Windy, which is a weather forecasting program that we use a lot. We watch that. It's quite not sophisticated, but there's quite a few interesting features that you can take home from that, if you get on and look at weather. And certainly today I'm going to talk a bit about the weather that's going on in the South Atlantic, because it's quite active. There's a lot of interesting things going, so that might be interesting as well. Anyway, let's see. I had a little failure at the very beginning of this setup, and I had to reboot, but everything looks as if it's still there, so that's all kind of good, and hopefully you're still hearing me. So yeah, this doldrum situation is very interesting, and it's playing out in various ways. But for now, we'll just talk about Godspeed down the back here. They're just keeping in the breeze, 6 knots and 125 nautical miles in the last 24 hours. So still keeping up with the fleet. And they've got an ETA now, which is showing sort of around about start day. So they should pick up a bit as long as they get through the doldrums fast. And what's the weather looking like tomorrow? 24 hours out. They've still got breeze. They'll still be in that. So that'll keep them going. They'll probably have another 125-mile day. And then the second day, yeah, they got plenty of breeze. That'll pick them up to about 170, I reckon. With all this lot, they'll be down here and really pumping along. That means they're locked in. And I think those northeasterly trades will hold. Yeah, that's going in a couple of days. So they're in the trades. They'll make it to the doldrums in the next sort of 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 days. They'll be down there and face their own challenges. So what's happening here? Well, the first thing that is really cool to watch, you may remember back here, if you're following White Shadow's track, when they were back there, they pulled away from that tail end of group, knowing full and well, having read the pilots and all the rest of it, is that you don't want to be the other side of Cape Verdes when you're approaching the doldrums, if you can help it. Okay, so he took a punt, lost a bit of ground, went out to the west, and boy, it's paying off big time now, because he took out about nearly 100 miles on Explorer last night, just because they've got the breeze and Explorer's running on the edge, same as Evrika and so on. Now Evrika has just made a bit of an interesting move, and I'm glad Explorer didn't do the same. Now, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but you can see Explorer had actually pulled across trying to hold into this wind band. Maybe they read something and said, oh, get to the west, but they've still started drifting a little bit now. They're down to 4.2 and only did 70 miles in the last 24 hours. So Sterner, however, pulled away. She's done 104 nautical miles in the last 24 because there was absolutely more breeze over here. But anyway, they're still holding into it. Yeah, the Explorer had this spinnaker wrap. I don't know how bad it was. Hopefully they didn't damage the spinnaker, so they can keep using it for now. Got it down okay. And Evrika was doing well, but for whatever reason, she's decided to might be jibing downwind and bits and pieces, but she's heading out into no man's land and doing 84 nautical miles last 24 hours, 4 knots at the moment. And this could be the lucky break for Explorer if they keep going. So because it looks like Evrika's going to go out into this big hole. It's possibly going to sit there. So a little bit of fun between the 4 at the tail end here, and let's just see what's going to happen to them going forward in 24 hours' time. Okay. Evrika's probably going to be down here. Explorer's got the same deal, no wind, so no chance really to try and push away from anything. Stern is going to be the same. Everything's going to go slow, except for White Shadow. They've got a bit of a puff there. They'll be down here then, but it's a big opening up section of the doldrums there, and they're running down the edge of it. So I don't know whether any of them are going to do many miles. They'll be in thunderstorms and bits. Let's have a look at the clouds here and see what's happening. Yeah, it's a bit average, a little bit average. Overcast for sure. Currents shouldn't be a problem. No, there's no problem there for currents, but certainly is for Neptune. That'll explain that in a minute. And temperature, it's hot for sure. Now, the other interesting one is Outlaw. As you know, she dropped off the canoe and got going. And I think what we're going to see here is they're pretty much committed to taking the inshore route here. I think they probably, because the chief mate, Rins, he's a pretty cluey guy as well. He's a guy from Holland. Campbell's pretty smart, they're very particular on his approach and the knowledge that they would have gained before they departed. And I think what you're seeing is they know that the doldrums will be out here, but there's often a breeze down the African coast. And if they go this route, it'll set them up for possibly going down the middle. Now, the Baltic 55, like a lot of the boats in the OGR, is a good windward boat as well. And either way, even if they decide not to go down the middle, if they work this breeze coming down the African coast and end up over here when they hit the southeast trades, they can then, if we look at the issues here, look at the big picture, they can decide whether they want to keep tacking and work their way down, or even if not, they could probably, just make the most of the speed. And even if they decide to go around the South Atlantic High, they can, leverage their position over to the east. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. Honestly, I hope they go down the middle because it'll be a great contrast, and it's actually worked very well for many of the boats in the previous Whitbreads. I saw a comment from one of the sailors on Adventure in the first race. They went down through the middle, and they cleaned up on the boats that went round the trade wind route, round the side here. So it'll be fun if they do go that way, because it looks like they might be the only ones. We've done the time compensation for them, which will be announced in a press release going out this afternoon. There's been actually a lot of things happening in the last 3 days, so we thought, we better update everyone and get that out. So Jack's working on that now, and then we'll advise their manager in the next hour or so what that compensation is. I got to say, I've been involved with time compensation for various situations in the past, and this was the most complicated because of where this action took place, in amongst the doldrums. So it's not a time on distance thing. When a boat's doing 2 knots over, and you give them 10 hours of time, it's only about 20 miles, and yet they devoted 90 miles there. So this was very complicated, and we tackled that by having a few different people come up with independent assessment, and then we looked at the results of that assessment and then averaged it. But it is really difficult when you're trying to compensate and when you're in a unique weather pattern like the doldrums. So that was hard. Anyway, I'm hoping they'll be happy with that, and we balanced it as best we could. So Galliana with Secure, excuse me, taking on Triana for top spot in the adventure class, and it might get real. She's been still sailing at 3.6 knots, did 128 nautical miles in the last 24 hours. Triana's done 79 nautical miles in the last 24 hours, doing 2.2, but she is further progressed north-south into the doldrums. But nonetheless, Galliana, I know those guys on board, they are working really hard. They'll be sweating it out and changing and doing whatever they can to get it going. And I'm not sure whether they're speaking with Triana or know where she is, but they just keep the competitive up all the time. So good to watch. They're making good progress, but it's not showing a lot of. Better come back to real-time weather. That's the weather today. So you can see there 3.6 knots. It actually looks as if there's more breeze than they're probably getting. That visual indication, this graphic, is suggesting there's probably about 8 to 12 knots of breeze there. And if that's the case, I'm sure Galliano would be doing more than 3.6. But at least there's a gradient there, like a pressure. There's a gradient, so they've got breeze. Triana's in a bit of a trough there. That's why, if this is correct, that's why they're sitting there. And Neptune, not going anywhere, 3 knots. And the reason she's facing that way is no doubt because of the currents. She's sitting right on top of this northerly going current, and that's probably running. In fact, that's interesting. It's showing she's going that way in that direction at 3 knots, but I bet you she's actually probably sailing southeast. If we come back to the wind, oh no, it's got northerly. Yeah, she'll be going one direction, but the current is making her speed and course over the ground look as if she's going out to the east. So, so that current's not helping him. And just have another peek. Let's see. It's not affecting the Spirit Equip. Triana's lost a bit on that. That's probably half to 3/4 of a knot head current going up into where you can see where it's going. But certainly Neptune's not in a good spot right there when you've got light winds and you've got a big current like that. Maiden and Translated, not a problem with the current. So we'll go back to the wind. So the Spirit Equip, right on, it looks as if the trades are pushing up to medium, which we suggested yesterday. I just remembered something. I'm supposed to talk a lot slower because apparently there are quite a few French who speak a little bit of English watching this. And I speak a little bit fast. So I'll try and slow down a little bit. But yeah, the Spirit Equip is 5.4 knots, but only did 46 nautical miles in the day. So that's suggesting this breeze is now coming over them and they may keep going. And that could be the end of the doldrums for the Spirit Equip. Let's hope so. Certainly Maiden and Translated are still going hell for leather. 6.7 knots and 94 nautical miles for Maiden, and 5.3 knots and 93 nautical miles for Translated. Now, I've got to, if you, Jane's got the sound clouds up right now, and I would strongly suggest you listen to the conversation from Marco and the team on Translated, because I can tell you now there's some blind radio dating going on between the boats. Okay. I don't know how much to tell you on this. I think that's probably enough, but it is very funny. They're lining up dates between the boats, and they're choosing profiles on the radio, and they don't know who they're talking to, but they're going to invite each other out to dinner. Different crew members, not knowing who it is until they get there. It's very funny on the VHF because they're so close. Anyway, have a listen. You'll probably laugh. So yeah, certainly having a great race, and that's serious fun for them. Spirit of Helsinki, 7.1 knots and 116 in the last 24. So they look like they're out of it as well. And let's have a look at what that weather's going to look like now before we get into Maiden. Penduic, he is so far in front right now, but it's pretty clear if you look at that. They've got the breeze, and it's coming up from the trades down below them, and then you've got the big hole here that's affecting everyone. So I'm just going to bounce that every hour and see what we've got. That band of trades are still sitting there, but getting lighter. So that's going to impact them, so they won't make big speed. Neptune will get a bit of breeze, but it's still all coming from the south by the look. But at least there's a breeze, and they can work with that. But then it's got another hole, so that's about a day and a bit into it. You can also see this breeze here holding the African coast, and I think Outlaw will hold that and go down, and then bounce off and head south. So that's kind of interesting to watch. Galliana might be in a hole. This is a day and a bit ahead, coming up to 2 days ahead now. Yeah, still a bit of a hole, but then it's puffing from behind. Look at that. Yep, that's so. But then 2 days away, they'll already be down here. So they're following the light stuff. So no real big breakaway for anyone. It'll be slower for Maiden and Translated compared to Spirit of Helsinki. I think you're going to see Spirit of Helsinki get a jump now on these two, pull away. The Equip should keep up with Maiden and Translated, and Triana and Neptune and so on. They're just going to drift down towards that line. Anyway, let's go back and now have a look at what's happening with Penduic. As we suggested, as they come around here, they'll hold high and go through. In fact, I think I'm going to leave that there now. And I'll tell you why. I want to show you what's going on. The weather up here, as I said yesterday, is driven by the activity in the South Atlantic. And it's very active at the moment. There's a lot of things going on with other systems. So as I mentioned, there's meant to be a South Atlantic high here that drives the trades. It's actually not there. It's been dominated by this low pressure system. And what you'll see happen here, and I can slide it through, that's meant to be a big solid green area of the northeasterlies. And as you go forward, it gets stronger and stronger. But because of this low, it's blowing the high apart. There's no distinct weather. There's a big trough here. So the trades are dying out. Okay. And that's going to go through till Sunday. There's Saturday. We go to Sunday. You can see there's very, very little trades here, very little pressure. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And then you've got this high pressure system here that's starting to try and dominate. So it's pushing the low pressure away. And what you're going to see is this high. See, it's starting to open up and it starts to become very strong. And in fact, that's going to be a monster high. This is about 3 days around. You can see it building there. It's just physically getting away. It's blowing that low away. That's shooting down into the Southern Ocean. And now you're starting to see the traditional stuff. But it's not doing much here for Penduic. It's not so bad, I suppose. It did go soft, but it's not so bad. And then as this high builds and builds, and it's going up to about 1,044 or 1,045 hectopascals, and that's really strong. And you can see it's now been this huge South Atlantic high, which is more traditional. But now imagine yourself, Penduic comes down here, and this will be gone. This one will be gone by the time Penduic gets down here. But to get around to Cape Town, you can't just head over this way and go to Cape Town like this Rumline course here. You're actually going to have to go south, and this is the way it's done. And usually you've got to get below 40. So you'll see Penduic and most of the boats, they'll come down here, and they need to, you'll hear them talk about, if they do or don't know where the center of the high is, it can affect their tactics. But that's life. And you can see this high is particularly strong. And then the center always moves across to the northeast and comes across towards Cape Town. So now you'd come down here, and as soon as you see the wind start to, and you're working your barometer in the tropics up here, there's very low pressure gradient, so you don't see much movement of your barometer or barograph as the systems are coming past. But down here, there's massive movement on your barometer and barograph. So what that tells you is, using that, the wind direction and the barometric pressure, you can position yourself in relation to the high pressure system going across. You can always work out where the center of the high is just by facing the wind and sticking your arm out. I'll explain that a bit more, so you know where the center is. And if it's a high pressure and you're going this way, the barometer's going up. If you're going this way, the barometer's going down. So you can sail the contours and follow the wind direction and sail. And this is where weather skill starts to come into it. And some of the entrants will get it, some of them have no idea, and that's where you'll see some big differences. The ones that really have an understanding, like Galliana and stuff. I mean, Tapio's done this heaps of times, but others may be new to this, and that may affect. So that's the thing that's going to dominate as it goes through. So just to follow it through to show how it goes, you can see this is going down now, and so if you're on the wrong side of it, you got to reach in there. But certainly as you approach Cape Town, you need to be, it's squashed again. It's very common to have this sort of southeasterly blowing, so you don't want to approach from the west because you're going to get headwinds and you get blown up here somewhere. But you'll see them come down, and you need to approach Cape Town at the last minute from the southwest in case this happens. Anyway, but the reason I just give you that explanation, there's a lot of activity down here right now. And this was, people pointed out, this was a no-go zone. They're not allowed to go into here. If they get in here, it's like a 4-hour penalty for every hour they're in the zone, plus a 6-hour penalty, I think, for crossing over into it straight away. We don't want boats to go too far south for rescue coordination reasons, and also ice. So just coming across now while I'm here, I'm explaining the course. They get into Cape Town. Once they get there, they can do all their weather routing for when they leave, because there's some serious currents here. I'll just show you the Agulhas current. they're going to want to know about this before they leave, because this current is like an underwater river. It's on the surface, of course, and the currents can run up to 5 knots and more. So you don't want to get on the wrong side. So these are like streams, like rivers. But if you can work out the coordinates here, you work out the latitude and longitude, and usually you're coming south anyway to get the westerlies and the roaring 40s. So you would leave Cape Town, come straight down here, plonk yourself in the middle there, run down this one because the river's not going to change much, and get a boost to the east, and then probably run down this one if the weather's not dominating and you want to be somewhere else to get the stronger westerlies. And they'll have forecasts going forward on that. Anyway, again, coming across now to explain where the course is. You come down here, these little yellow dots on the course are waypoints. So you've got the Croziers here and you've got Kerguelen Island there. You have to leave both of those to starboard when you go past. So they can't go below those points. They come here and dip down, but then they've got to come up again to get over it. And that's quite far south. That's down in the 50s. And this was a real dilemma working out what we do in terms of safety, because there's very few ships down here. You sometimes get ships come through here, and if there's ever a drama here, you want to have, you want to be close to assets that may be able to assist. But we work with the rescue coordination centres in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa on this. But when it was fully crewed with bigger, powerful boats that are able to dodge some of the weather, we've actually extended a little bit further south than we do in the Golden Globe race. So they can come down to Kerguelen. Then from there, they dip here on the 50s and come up again over this waypoint, because this is an ice area. Sometimes you get ice come up in here. So we had to send them a bit north. And anyway, yeah, that's part of the course. So there's a waypoint there. Then after that, they may dip around. Normally, if you want to go the shortest distance, of course, is a great circle distance, and I can show you how that works. So I'm going to measure the distance between 2 points. There's 1 point there, and if I put a point over here in Perth, look at that. That's the shortest distance, and that's called great circle sailing. So you can see going south is pretty cool. And if I wanted to take that distance all the way across to New Zealand, that's where you got to go. You got to go down into the Antarctic, which you can't do. But that's the shortest distance. If this was a sphere, you would actually see what happens. And you can see even to Tasmania, the shortest distance between Cape Town and Tasmania takes you below the 60s. And I've been down there often, and there's a lot of ice down there, a lot of icebergs and all that sort of stuff. So that's and in the first Whitbreads, that's what they were doing. They were coming down into the deep 50s and so on. And even in the BIC, when I did the BIC in 1990, one entrant went into 62, and I was the guy that was going to have to go and get him if something happened. I was up in the Kerguelens. Anyway, I digress. But that's why we have these waypoints to keep the fleet north. It's a lot safer. You're out of the ice, and we want to do that. So those waypoints are very important. They have to go around that and miss them, and then it comes across to New Zealand. Okay, and then from New Zealand, we've got some more waypoints here. They'll come out here, dip south as fast as they can to get the westerly breezes, and then run along here, but they've got to go over those waypoints. We don't want to go too far south. Another one there, and then they're around Cape Horn, and then they come up against this blocking no-go zone as well, but then they're free to get around Cape Horn and head north. So that's a bit of a rundown there, and back to finalise this with Penduick. He is doing particularly well. 7.5 knots, 156 in the last 24 hours. In terms of a distance, I'll give you some distances now. Hang on a sec. Come up here. Distance between them and Spirit of Helsinki now 337. In yesterday's SoundCloud call with Marie, she knows she's got to arrive 3 days ahead of translated, because that's approximately their IRC handicapping over that time and distance. So 3 days. Translated now is 469 miles behind Penduick, and that's it's just under 3 big days. Okay, so absolutely at the moment they're first in line honours, first in IRC overall, and first in flyer class. A very commanding position, and they were first across the equator as well. Here's the equator. They had a big party on board going across. They had a few that had never been across the equator before, so a bit of fun for them. All right, I think that's probably enough for today. So no more to report. I'm just going to check the questions here to see if there's anything happening on the questions. I'll go back to the beginning. It's so interesting to see Skipper's tactical decisions. Yeah, it's quite interesting, and it's setting the scene for the other side of the doldrums. Morning, Paul. Just wondering how the French translates hell for leather. Did I say hell for leather? Okay, yeah, hell for leather. That means clear out, pull your pants up and get going. Get out of here. So yeah, maybe I'll have to Google that and see where it came from. I've got no idea. I'm going to do that as soon as I get off. See where hell for leather came from. G'day, Ian, Simon. It's interesting how the 70s and 80s era classic sailing yachts have been competitive with the contemporary cripple race boats over the past week or so. That's interesting. I've never thought of that. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Bearing in mind, what I would say is that the clipper yachts, while they're much more modern boats, Robin is very sensible. And when you're in a one design fleet, I've gone for this. I love the idea of one design anything. I tried to get a one design rally car racing up. I tried to get a one design around the world race up. And we've got a one design mini race. Okay, that's a separate one, the MGR. Because when you're in one design boats, you can actually do what you want. It's boat for boat. It's fantastic. And so when Robin and their team came up with the concept of the clipper boats, which are fantastic for the task they do, they're not super high tech. Hell for leather. There I go again. Hell for leather, balls to the wall type racing boats. They're a one design fleet that sail really well. They're very safe and strong and all that sort of stuff. And so they're having their own race. So yeah, but it is interesting. I haven't seen where it is. I haven't had a good look. I'll come down to that. But yeah, I love everything about the Clipper. It's quite an amazing program. So morning to Trisha Antigua. Hello. I'm not sure what that was about. G'day, Ada. People are more brave at that time. Yeah, true. Morning from Theist. Okay, equator crossing. The equator crossing rituals. Yeah, they did all that. Basically, you just got to trash someone. If you've been before, you get a chance to trash them. And if you're a virgin, equatorial virgin, you get hammered somehow. And when I did my first equator crossing, actually, that just made me think. We were in the BOC. I just did myself in with mashed potato and Vegemite and all this gooey stuff. People do it. Okay, that's it. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you tomorrow.